I'm Steve Feldman, president of the Human Animal Bond Research Institute. As Pet Week continues, we're so grateful that you're joining us for these important conversations about pets in our lives. I especially want to thank our session sponsors and all of the sponsors of Pet Week for making this programming possible. And we're going to keep it short and informative, and we're going to continue to post resources at petnight.com so that you can continue to engage on these issues. We're covering an important one today, pets and housing. And we're joined by Brett Yates, the Chief Executive Officer of Michelson Found Animals. This is an organization founded by Dr. Gary Michelson to really tackle the toughest issues when it comes to animal welfare, including lowering shelter euthanasia rates, including spay-neuter, including microchipping. This is an organization on the leading edge of helping keep pets and people together, especially in times of crisis. They are committed to the human-animal bond, which is why they're such a wonderful partner for HABRI and important sponsors for our Pet Week on Capitol Hill effort. Brett is a leader who has been engaged in all of the important issues that I just mentioned, including the formation of the Pet Inclusive Housing Initiative, PIHI for short. We always love those acronyms. The Pet Inclusive Housing Initiative is really working to tackle the tough issues of making sure that we have more pet-friendly housing. And Brett has an amazing and informative presentation for us today. And then I'm going to ask him some questions. If you have questions for us, you can type them on the petnight.com site, or if you're watching on the HABRI Facebook page, please feel free to put your questions into the comments and we'll answer those as best we can. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome Brett Yates, Chief Executive Officer of Michelson Found Animals.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the presentation on the Pet Inclusive Housing Initiative that is managed jointly by Michelson Found Animals and by HABRI. I know that I don't need to give any of my background on HABRI, since they're the reason that you're all here today, but I will give a bit of background on Michelson Found Animals, or MFA. My name is Brett Yates, and as Steve so graciously introduced, I am the CEO at MFA. I've been in this organization for several years, and I'm incredibly passionate about the topic we're about to talk about today. I won't spend any time talking through the breadth of what we do at MFA, but I encourage you to visit our website at www.foundanimals.org for more information, including to learn more about our amazing founders, Dr. Gary and Alia Michelson. So stepping into the agenda for this evening, during our time, I won't be reading all of these bullets for you, and I won't be reading all of the slides for you. So I'm hoping that you're able to read through the slides while I'm talking so that we can digest a lot more information and we can take some steps toward resolving this national issue. When I do point out some of the facts on the screen, it's because they're important facts and I want to set the tone for the issue. So jumping into the mission, you'll see from this mission statement that our goal is to address the housing crisis for pets and their people, both within public and subsidized housing and within the multi-tenant housing space. As a result, you'll see that we're spending a lot of our time working with the national large owner-operators of multi-tenant housing to adjust their policies. The most obvious of these is breed and size restrictions that are still employed by many operators in public and private housing. So talking through the importance of pet-friendly housing, you can see that I will immediately break my rule and talk through some of these bullets here that are critical to set the tone for this. 70% of US households own a single pet or own at least one pet. During the pandemic, more than 20% of households have added a pet. You can see that the vacancy rates are as low as they've been since the 1980s, and that 72% of residents say that pet housing is hard to find. For some context to this slide, in 2021, there were 4.6 million cats and dogs that entered the shelters in our country. That's a lot of pets to find homes for. When being surrendered, housing is the #1 reason that is cited for owners for no longer being able to keep their dog. Moving on to the second slide of the importance in pet-friendly housing. This slide illustrates that if pet restrictions were completely lifted throughout America, 1/3 of the people that already have a pet would get another one. When you add in that all people that want to add a single pet to their life we would be able to clear 8.2 million animals from the shelters. As you saw from the previous slide, that's far more than is actually in the shelters now. In other words, we'd be able to clear all of the shelters in America immediately if we were to make a few simple changes within public and private housing. What makes this truly amazing is that we're seeing that when tenants live in unrestricted housing for their pets, they stay longer and therefore are much more profitable for the owners and operators. So these changes are great for pets, they're great for pet owners, and they're great for housing operators. Everyone wins. Now we just need to get everyone to see this and adjust their policies. So what is Pi-Hi working toward? You can see that there are 4 facets of this issue that we are aggressively working on. On the policy front, we need your help to change the world, and we'll talk about this more in a little bit. Economically, we're looking to show housing operators how incredible this is for them and how beneficial this is for them. Toward attitudes, the love of pets is fairly universal. Most owner-operators are pet owners themselves that see their pets as family members. Translating that from their family to the families that they provide housing for will require a shift of thinking. Fortunately, it's not monumental, but it will take time, research, and pressure from all sides. We're working to develop resources for owners, operators, for tenants, for elected officials, and for anyone else that can help push this movement forward. So I want to spend a few minutes walking you through a case study or 2 case studies that we have prepared for you. On the left, you'll see that TMG is a multi-tenant owner-operator that operates in the South, specifically in Atlanta. In this case, several years ago, they removed all of their pet restrictions on their properties, and as a result, their renewal rates on their apartments have increased to 80%. Just to put that in context, the typical industry standard is just north of 60%, so this is a dramatic shift. For property managers, turnover of units is one of the most expensive issues because often carpet, flooring, window coverings, and appliances need to be replaced. Having renters stay in their units adds to the bottom line in a significant way. What they also found is that the number of pets on the property increased by 30% because there were no longer penalties to having an additional pet or adding a new pet. Perhaps most importantly, the CEO cites that this is the fact that their communities are now much healthier, happier, and connected to one another. On the right side, we include a quote from one of our local nonprofit organizations in LA that works closely with the homeless to take care of themselves and their pets. For those of you that work with the homeless, this is a story that you hear far too often. We want to make sure to stop forcing people from deciding between getting shelter or keeping their pet. There is no reason to have their ascent from the worst times in their lives include unnecessary obstacles like this. So let's talk about the important policies and legislation that are out there. We've listed 4 pieces of potential legislation here, 1 federal and 3 state level. All of them are aimed at taking steps to resolve this issue. I implore all of you to determine what you can do to take next steps in pushing this critical issue into the past for all Americans. So some of the challenges to overcome, as you can see, this matches up closely with what we presented on an earlier slide. We have a lot to overcome, so your help in any of these 4 areas or all of them would be greatly appreciated. I will say that our host HABRI has done a phenomenal job of doing research around these topics, including how pets positively impact mental health for all individuals, how they improve physical health of their owners, and how beneficial they are for children and their development, among many others. Through our research with HABRI, we were able to ask some questions of your constituents about their views on government and if they should be involved in solving this problem. We thought it would be interesting for you to see this detail. As you can see, the majority of people feel that government should make it easier to own a pet without restrictions on housing. And even on the topic of whether housing operators should be limited or restricted, the majority still felt that there should be government involvement. So the next question is what you can do. We've listed 6 bullet points for ways that you can get involved in resolving this issue. There are many more than 6 ways, but hopefully this helps to spur some thought for you and your teams. To me, the most important statistic here is that 2/3 of your constituents are pet owners and care about this topic. It is definitely not a niche topic, and it is also a topic that both sides of the aisle can stand behind because we all love our pets. In 2023, please consider making this a cornerstone topic for your team. And if you ever have any questions that we can clarify you, feel free to contact me or any of my team at MFA, or contact the team at HABRI. We will always make ourselves available to help push this topic forward. Thank you again for coming today, and I look forward to working with many of you in the future.
Brett, that was a fascinating presentation. I think our entire audience is surprised to see how big an issue this is and how many pets can actually be saved if we just make some common sense changes. I think because it is based on common sense, you're having some success influencing private sector providers of housing. Tell us how you're doing that and what kind of reaction you're getting.
So my team is highly engaged on both the public housing side and on the private housing side. They require really different tactics and skill sets. I have team members here from both sides today. On the private housing side, it is interesting that most of the operators of multi-tenant housing communities are far more ready to talk to us, understand the issue, understand the needs to make a change, and are willing to engage with us. The obstacles usually come in the form of people having a polar view that have experienced something negative in their careers, and they extrapolate that to be a much larger issue than it is. Through the data, we've seen that less than 2% of damage cases from pets actually gets to an insurance company, because in the vast majority of cases, the damages are small enough that they're paid for by the pet owner or are taken out of a deposit. As a side note, this percentage is much less than the damages caused by humans.
You know, I thought it was fascinating that you said that there's common ground in the form of the human animal bond, that most providers of housing love pets just as much as anyone. And that, I think, forms a wonderful basis for helping address this issue. You know, another place that's pet friendly is Capitol Hill. There's so many pets that are able to come to the office on Capitol Hill. So we have a lot of pet lovers watching today. Can you reiterate? I know you shared some specific pieces of legislation. Can you just reiterate what members of Congress, what congressional offices can do to participate and help on this issue?
Yeah, absolutely. So the reality here is that pets are now viewed as family members. You see this across America, and it's even more illustrative through the younger generations that view these animals as their kids. They will sacrifice, they will take all kinds of sacrifices in their life, and will spend money on these furry kids. And it may mean that they don't get to go out to dinner tonight, but they will take care of these animals. So I think what it really means for all of us is that we need to start viewing this as an opportunity within America where we can keep families together. We can enable these pets to have more position in the family. And we can do that through legislation. We can do that through policy. We can do that through a lot of the different mechanisms that we have at our fingertips.
And people can find out about this at petsandhousing.org. We'll put a lot of this information on the petnight.com website also, so people can find it. Because we know we have a lot of folks who want to help. And pets are such a bipartisan issue. And they really do help bring people together. There are a lot of pet owners watching today with their furry children by their sides. If somebody's experiencing some of these challenges with housing or just wants to help on this issue, what can those folks do?
So the resources are already out there for you to be a champion of this cause. If you or your team don't find exactly what you need when you do a quick search, let us know and we'll help you to find what you need to take the first steps. Then we can work together to resolve this systemic issue, make our community stronger, and clear the shelters, which will in turn save our government's funds that they can focus elsewhere. This is an extremely rare issue, in my opinion, where everyone benefits, and we need people to take the next steps with us.
So you've been on Capitol Hill visiting with folks about this important issue, and there's many people who are working on this issue with you. So tell us how it's going when you're out there in the halls of Congress.
Well, it's actually a really easy topic to talk about because most people have pets already. So all I have to do is tell me about your dog, tell me about your cat, and it changes the conversation. It's no longer about policy and about legislation, but it opens the door for them to be able to see that everyone is in the same boat, and 2/3 of America has pets, more than 2/3. So as we start talking through this, it's amazing how you see people light up and identify with it. And if they can, universally, I've seen that almost all congressional members are willing to talk about this and willing to take steps to resolve this issue. When they realize that there's a disparity in America, it really changes their viewpoint.
Once again, thank you to Michelson Found Animals for sponsoring Pet Week on Capitol Hill. And thank you to Brett Yates, Chief Executive Officer of Michelson Found Animals, for sharing his thoughts with us today. Thanks to all of our sponsors for making these conversations possible. All of these sessions will be available on demand on the petnight.com website and the HABRI Facebook page. So I encourage you to share and watch as much as possible. And please tune in for our next session later this afternoon, a session featuring Representative Jason Crow talking about the POP Act. Thank you so much for joining us.